Alright, we're back for another quick one here. Okay, so I got the prop spinner off, got the engine sitting in some kerosene, or petroleum, depending on what part of the world you're from. And as you can see in there, it doesn't look very clean, does it? But the inside is beautifully clean. Engine turns nice and freely, no stuck, no nothing. So what I did, this might not be the correct thing to do, but I had to work with what I've got. So how I did it to get the prop spinner off, that is, which is in there, that red thing, was because these engines have such a tight tolerance and compression, I took my afterburn oil, you can even use air tool or motor oil, and I filled with a piston all the way at bottom dead center like that, filled the exhaust ports with oil so that the connecting rod and the piston cannot compress the oil. Then what I did was I put the Tommy bar, or actually that screwdriver, through the prop spinner with the hole like that. Just imagine that being on there. And then what I did is I used my propane torch to just gently heat that up. Just a little bit, not a whole lot, holding the engine upside down to keep the oil in the cylinder. I heated this up just ever so slightly after I soaked it with penetrating oil. And then I took my screwdriver, put it through there, and just gently gave it a little bit of force until it went dink, and it broke free, and then I just unscrewed it all the way off. And then I'm just, finished washing up the parts here, so. But that was the disc valve I'm talking about earlier. That screw, if my camera will focus, keeps tension on that pin right there. So if this valve gets worn out or loose, if my camera would focus, the engine might not run very good if this disc is loose. It might not even start at all, or it might not, it just might not run good. So what you can do is push on here, or unloosen that screw, push on here, and then tighten this back up. You don't want this tight to the point where it can't move or it's stiff to move. It should move very freely on its own. It shouldn't be dragging or binding anywhere. Yeah, so I thought I'd just point that out, because there is some videos on YouTube of this engine, not this one, well, this model, but they're in Russian, and which there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't speak Russian, nor do I understand it. I don't bliat, and Edi nahoy, which are two bad words, but yeah, so, or blien, little pancake. But anyways, so yeah, the videos were in Russian, so obviously I can't understand that. There was no subtitles. So I thought I'd just make an English version for those of you that speak and understand English to watch of this engine here. And there's the 4 screws. There's a little prop washer. I really should be wearing gloves because kerosene is not really good for you to be handling with your bare skin. And then after this is all dried and clean, I oil everything with this after an oil. You can actually even use air tool oil if that's all you have for your air guns and such, pneumatic tools. You can use that. You can use liquid wrench if you like this stuff, or you could just use standard like 10W30 engine oil. You could use 2-stroke oil. I don't recommend storing these with castor oil in them because it'll gum up and it'll get hard, and then the engine might not turn next time you want to go start. It'll be too gummy. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. But there's that gasket. You want to make sure that's not ripped or torn any, because if that's ripped or torn at all, you'll have a crankcase leak there and your engine will not run right. So keep that in mind. And if you can manage to get the 3 little screws out of the top here and pop the sleeve out, there's also a gasket that goes under the sleeve, and you want to make sure that one's in good shape too, or make another one of the same thickness, because if any of those gaskets are missing, you'll have a crankcase pressure leak, and the engine will either run terribly, be very difficult to start, or you'll notice fuel spraying out from underneath the exhaust ports in that gap right down there. So then you don't want that, because the engine will run very inefficiently, and it won't get nice and peaky and peak up like it should. It'll just run terrible if it runs at all. So that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, there she is, all cleaned out. Yeah, steel crankshaft, aluminum connecting rod. I believe the pistons are steel or cast iron, if my camera would focus. Which it's not going to, but anyway. So yeah, I believe the steels are made of the pistons are made of steel or cast iron. I'm not exactly quite sure. But yeah, there she is. Too bad about those nicks in the freaking head there, but what do you expect for a 30-year-old engine, right? Anyhow. Radio. So it's just another video on this engine that I got today. And just some cleaning tips. Like I said, you can use kerosene, or petroleum as they call it, or diesel, whatever, lacquer thinner, paint thinner, anything like that to clean them. So anyways, take it easy, guys. Keep your hands oily.